If I could put a gold deposit anywhere in the world, it would be right here. I think we've got something really exciting here. So we've got over 1 million ounces right now at some of the highest grades in oxide in the world. And now, to have 3 different target areas and we're finding anomalous gold in all of those target areas, it feels like wherever we're poking holes, we're finding gold. And now we've got to vector in on some higher grades and strap together, another satellite deposit. Typically, we're an exploration stage company, and as we continue to explore and build up our resource, I don't think we'd be in a position to build. I think we'd probably get acquired at some point between now and a construction decision.
Today we're having a chat with John Sclodnick, CEO of Nevada King Gold, and a lot has changed since the last time we spoke, John, including your title.
That's right, yeah. Thanks, Stein, and great to be here again. Yeah, so took over the role of CEO. It's kind of in name. I was president before, so just kind of continuing to do work. Love the team around me. Got a great group. Colin Cattell still involved, very much so as chairman. Still speak with him daily. He stepped into the chairman role. I stepped into that CEO role. We've got a new CFO as well, who's very strong, kind of a great team around, and same team at site doing the work, and that's the real key. The guys at site continue to look for gold.
Perfect. And there's plenty to discuss today. You put out some interesting news releases, of course. You announced some additional drill sites that you have and now the licenses for, some drill results. But before we can talk about all that, perhaps we can start with an overview of really the Atlanta Gold Project from your perspective, and then we can start going a bit deeper after that.
Yeah, I guess taking a step back and kind of what we're looking to do here with our Phase 3 drill program, which is ongoing, is we put out that resource update in June, showing we've got over 1 million ounces in M&I at the Atlanta resource zone. So obviously a very good starting point, especially with the grade of 1.14 grams per ton in that M&I category. So it's a high confidence resource, got a really high grade core, and it's a really good starting engine here. And I think that itself can drive some strong economics. But when we talk to other corporates, they want to see more. They want to see a longer mine life. They want to see growth potential beyond that. And so that's the purpose of this program right now, adding to that resource, either along strike to the north or to the south, or finding independent satellite deposits. And so that's what we're looking for. That's been the purpose of this program, is to hopefully find shallow near surface oxide mineralization that can potentially be stacked on a heap leach. And I think we're well on our way to that and have some pretty exciting targets and some that are getting a little bit more advanced as well that we can get into.
Yeah, no, 100% those targets are very exciting. But of course, zooming a tiny bit deeper into the resource, you currently have about 1.2 million ounces, if I'm correct. Very shallow, relatively high grade for these oxide resources.
Yeah, the resource that we have right now, it's really a very good starting engine here. And so we like what we've got there. And with these other areas, particularly Silver Park, that one's really coming together nicely. It's lower grade so far from what we've been seeing at the Atlanta resource zone, but it is closer to surface, so potentially we'll have a lower strip ratio as well. And importantly, also oxidized there at that target. And really everything that we've been drilling so far continues to be oxidized. So it's a very unique attribute of our property, is that we haven't really come across a transition zone even, let alone a sulfide zone. So everything that we've been drilling so far remains oxide. And right now, the drilling that we're doing is close to surface and getting some well above cutoff grades here.
Yeah, I would love to zoom in a tiny bit deeper into those drill results you've recently put out. Of course, the grades by themselves, they might not sound as impressive as some other drill holes that you have on this project. Perhaps you can explain really what the importance of these drill results are and what they will tell us about the larger Nevada King land package.
Yeah, so we definitely set a pretty high bar with the drilling that we did at the Atlanta resource zone, and some pretty phenomenal headline hits that we were able to put out. We had 11.6 grams per ton over 108 meters, some pretty strong grades there at the Atlanta resource zone, but that is mixed with lower grade material to get to a 1.14 gram per ton, which is a very high grade oxide resource there. So you're mixing in with some low grade material. We do have a cutoff of about 0.14 grams per ton for the heap leach pad. So we're looking for material to potentially stack on a heap leach pad. Obviously, low cost material, and it's a very, very low bar. So when we're finding the grades that we are, in Silver Park East in particular, we've got grades at, the highlight hole that we just put out was 0.83 grams per ton, gold equivalent over 67 meters. That was 0.55 grams per ton gold. So we've got some really strong hits like that. We also put out about 0.47 over 92 meters in 3 separate horizons, also at Silver Park East. So, something's starting to come together here. We now have a 750 meter strike length at Silver Park East. And, what we really want to do is find, some higher grade pockets. And if we can, we're off to the races. But even if we can't, this more than works, well above, the cutoff grade of 0.14. We're very happy to be stacking half a gram. That's typical for Nevada oxide heap leach projects as well. So, if we can continue to do this, we're thrilled. But the team at site is using the information, the data that we're getting to try to vector in on some higher grade zones going forward. And what we're seeing right now is, like I said, we've got a 750 meter strike length between 3 different drill holes. But these all sit on the southern margin of a large geophysical anomaly. So that's the next step. We're actively drilling at site, and we're right now tagging into that anomaly and going to see what we have. That extends 700 meters north. So pretty exciting with the potential to hopefully put a nice size resource together.
No, yeah, 100%. And talking about scale and size a bit of really what these drills have done for you, expanding the strike length. And perhaps you can put it into a bit of perspective on how big these targets are now becoming.
Absolutely, yeah. And so you can see on that image there the size of the footprint of the resource zone. I was discussing Silver Park East before. That's over 2 kilometers away from the resource zone. And like I said, you got a 750 meter strike length there. We go way up north, 4.5 kilometers north of the resource, and we're at Atlanta North, which has never been explored before. We put in some holes there. We've got about 0.3 grams per ton over 36 meters, and that's starting close to surface at about 36 meters as well. So that's an exciting hole and a really good start for us. And what's interesting about it is that it exists along this West Atlanta fault, which is the mineralizing fault of that resource zone. And if you go about 3 kilometers south of that, you have a historic hole that hit about 0.88 grams per ton over 10 meters. That was drilled around 96 by Golden Chief. So, you've got this 3 kilometer gap now between 2 very well mineralized holes. And now we're pretty excited to find out what exists between those. So a lot of scale potential here at that Atlanta North target. That's probably the earliest stage out of the 3 targets. And then when we go to Atlanta South, again, up to 3 kilometers away from the resource zone, you can see that the size of that target kind of dwarfs the size of the current resource footprint. And we're pretty excited with what we have there, in that it's in a new type of rock. It's in Pogonip limestone, and we haven't come across that on our property previously. And this is the host for significant deposits in northern Nevada. You've got, the Archimedes deposit with over 5 million ounces, Long Canyon with about 2 million ounces have all been discovered in this Pogonip limestone. So the team at site is really excited to delve into what we've got here in the Atlanta South target as well.
Yeah, that's a tremendous land package that you have here, and tremendous scale to it, of course. The math doesn't work like that, but if you have that 1.2 million ounces in that small gray zone, imagine what the potential could be over a larger area. And that's really, of course, what you're exploring here. That brings me to those 93 additional claims that you've, or at least drill targets, drill sites that you've now received approval for. Perhaps you can talk really what the vision with that is, and what you hope to test with those drills.
Yeah, so it's a massive land package here. We've got 130 kilometers squared. We really want to stay focused on these 3 zones right now, which are really shaping up nicely. Working alongside the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, and the state of Nevada. They've been very supportive, and we want to go kind of bit by bit to figure out, get the data back, and then find where we want to drill the next holes. So we permitted 93 new drill sites with this is our plan 4 modification. Our plan 3 modification was around 47 holes permitted. So They've been very, very good to work with, and this allows us to really tag into areas as we get new information. So we've got, new holes permitted around Silver Park East. That's a key focus for us. If it comes to this point where we're going to start to need to infill this, now we're better prepared to do that. If we want to infill that to get that to a resource category. And Atlanta South, like I said, we've got this new type of rock. The team's really excited, and this allows us to tag into areas of focus there. So really, it's been great to work with the BLM, the state of Nevada. They've been so supportive, and we've just seen kind of a general positive momentum in the state overall, just with permitting from other companies. Orla moving forward with South Railroad, what was a very recent example there. Seen a bunch of M&A in this space as well, companies coming into Nevada. So it's just been a great place to operate. They're very supportive. The jurisdiction, the county that we're in, it's a small population, only 4,500, but been very supportive as well. So pretty exciting to get these new sites permitted. And I can tell you that the team at site is really chomping at the bit to start infilling these and figuring out what we got at these new sites.
That is definitely great to hear. And touching base a bit on this permitting process, can you perhaps outline, because I think this is slightly different than how other states operate, that you need to permit each individual drill hole. Is that correct?
Yeah, you go through a process with the Bureau of Land Management. You got to permit the cross-country roads as well, these travel routes to get there. We do a lot of work as well on the biology side and archaeology side, just making sure that we're not disturbing the environment. So there's a constant process there to update the state and the Bureau of Land Management on what we're finding there on these different surveys. But fortunately, so far, we haven't come across any species that are endangered. Some that come up sometimes are sage grouse is one you don't want on the property. That can be difficult and has inhibited other projects moving forward. So we're lucky we haven't found species like that. We don't have running water at surface either, which is important. Sometimes the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers gets involved if you have running water at surface. So we're lucky. We really only deal with the BLM, and we've got a really strong working relationship with them. But even within Nevada, not all permitting is equal, and we're very fortunate to have that one permitting agency. But additionally, the resource is on patented land. And then the other area that we're most excited about, Silver Park, there's patented claims there as well. So that's kind of private land. So definitely, probably the best place in the world to be permitting, I would say. And that was one of the attractions of this company and this project is the ease. You're really only worrying about exploration, having exploration success. You don't have to worry about obviously any of these geopolitical concerns, and as much as the state's very diligent on permitting, making sure you're doing it the right way. They do want you to get to production. They're encouraging mining, so that's been great to see.
And talking about these exciting 93 targets that you now have permitted, I recently saw in your news release you described arsenic as a tracer in your drill course, and I believe I understand correctly that you can use this arsenic to actually target higher grade zones. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's certain elements that typically go along with gold. So where you find arsenic, you often find gold. So like I was saying, in these areas in northern Nevada, they tend to show high arsenic levels. So in this Pogonip limestone, some of the exploration that we've done in Atlanta South has shown some of the highest levels of arsenic on the property so far. And the team at site, the geologists, they find this to be a really important key tracer element and a strong correlation between arsenic and gold. So we're using all the tools at our disposal to look for gold, including other elements. We do assay for other elements as well. Obviously using geophysical tools as well. CSAMT has been very helpful, and then typical rock chip sampling, and just using everything at our disposal, including other elements that are typically help you vector into where that gold exists.
That is actually very exciting, being able to target that gold using those tracer metals, zooming in on that. Touching base on the current status of drilling at your project, are you currently drilling? And these 93 extra drill sites that you have now permitted, when should we expect drilling to start and perhaps also results finally to hit the market a couple of months later?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a backlog, and fortunately to get a lot of those drill holes out with our previous release there, which was focused on Atlanta North, Atlanta South, and Silver Park. We're currently drilling at site. And we're looking at Silver Park remains a key focus area. That is the target that's most advanced. So we're actively drilling there right now. Also going to follow up on, like I said, that untested gap between the hole at Atlanta North and that historical hole, and going to continue to explore Atlanta South. So these 93 drill holes open up some key target areas. We wanted to get those back in. And yeah, we're currently drilling. You should see a steady flow of drill results to come between now and year end. As we drill, we'll build up a critical mass and send those for assays, and typically get our assays back. It's been a little faster than it has previously, and can get those back usually in a month. So I would expect more press releases to come. Particularly, into September, a couple big conferences coming up. So we'd like to get another press release and update out before that.
Perfect. And talking about the finances around this drilling campaign, perhaps we can quickly touch base how that's currently looking like and how far that will get you.
Yeah, I mean, we don't like where our share price is at. It's been a little bit frustrating. We put out a resource update and increased our M&I 122%, put out phase 2 metallurgy, which allowed us to use run-of-mine heap leach potentially over crushing. Went from a 3-stage crush to a 2-stage crush on the mill. A lot of positive news. We've got targets more advanced than they've ever been, and at the same time our share price has been sliding. So we certainly do not want to be raising equity at these levels, but we're in a very lucky position that we don't need to be doing that. We've got a little under $10 million Canadian in the bank. So we're well funded to continue to do this drill program. The drill program, this phase 3, we technically have another 7,000 meters to go, but we're well funded to continue drilling beyond that, and we're going to. The team outside is really excited with these 3 targets. We're going to continue to drill these, and I think that the results are going to speak for themselves, and hopefully reflect a higher share price going forward, because right now we think that it's certainly not justified.
And zooming out a bit, John, really, you of course now are the new incoming CEO. Well, you are the CEO already. I would love to talk about your long-term vision for the company. Really, where would you like to take the company, and how do you see this company progress?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned at the start, we've got a really good starting engine here. One of the things that has me really excited to come in as now CEO, to make the investments in equities that I have, just buying more shares recently as well, just filed that. Just if I could put a gold deposit anywhere in the world, it would be right here. I think we've got something really exciting here. So we've got over 1 million ounces right now at some of the highest grades in oxide in the world, and now to have we've got 3 different target areas, and we're finding anomalous gold in all of those target areas. It feels like wherever we're poking holes, we're finding gold. And now we've got to vector in on some higher grades and strap together, another satellite deposit. And as we build that up, as much as we'd love to and think that there's potential to get 5 million ounces or so on this property one day. Typically, when you get to that 1.5, 2 million ounce threshold and show an economic project, you don't last long. So, we're in dialogue with other companies, of course. Right now, we're not looking to transact. We want to stay an exploration-focused company right now and just figure out what we've got on this property, continue to surface that value, and I think it will eventually be surfaced. But I mean, to be frank, we don't have the skill set on the management side to be building a mine. So there would need to be a transition if we get to that point. But typically, we're an exploration stage company, and as we continue to explore and build up our resource, I don't think we'd be in a position to build. I think we'd probably get acquired at some point between now and a construction decision. But a lot of work to be done between now and then, a lot of exploration to happen. And right now we're dialed in on Silver Park East. That one looks to be coming together nicely. Atlanta North is one that's an earlier stage target, but finding really exciting anomalous gold there. We've only put in 7 holes, so we'll be looking to follow up there. And Atlanta South, this is the one that could be, the fairly significant size deposit on the property. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the type of rock that hosts major deposits in Nevada. So pretty excited with what we have there. So it's an iterative process. As we get data back, we're interpreting that and adjusting accordingly. And so far the data has been very positive for Silver Park East. So we're going to continue to follow up on that.
Yeah, thank you for outlining the long-term vision. Very exciting to hear that, of course, and to understand that a bit better. Talking about that trade-off between exploring this further and potentially developing this in a joint venture or whatever scenario that would be, you currently are talking about the 1.2 million ounces. You have a high-grade pocket that could be a startup pit. It seems like an operation that could already be potentially very interesting economically speaking.
Yeah, I believe it is. So before I moved over to Nevada King, I was an equity research analyst covering this stock. Had a pretty nice valuation on it. Think it's and the analyst covering it right now also view it as significantly undervalued. I think Buffett says price is what you pay for a stock, value is what you get, and we're trading at 0.1 times, under 0.1 times on a price to NAV basis. So the price you're paying is, a tenth of the value that's ultimately there when you run the numbers, kind of run all the inputs that you'd put into an Excel spreadsheet to build a financial model on what the value of this project could be. So we view it as significantly undervalued. You can look at it on an EV per ounce basis. What are the ounces in the ground worth? Again, we're trading below average on the developer exploration peers. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense, just given, we've got a relatively more straightforward permitting path than a lot of our peers. We've got potential for run-of-mine heap leach, so lower operating costs leads to higher margins, so likely higher margin ounces in the ground. Straightforward CapEx as well. So these ounces, I would argue, should be trading well above that peer average. There can be inefficiencies in the market, and I think we're in a period of that right now, but we'll work through it, and in the medium and long term, that value is going to be surfaced in the market. So we're excited, but we definitely see a lot of value, see that 1.2 million ounces as a strong economic start, and think that it could run on itself. That said, talking to corporates, other intermediate and larger producers, they do want to see that critical mass of 1.5 to 2, and so we're working on that, and I think well on our way to get into that level.
And do you think that's the best lever you can pull to really unlock that value discount compared to your peers in the developer space, to really try to get that size going, so a potential joint venture developer or an acquirer would be interested to look, so that 1.5 2 million ounces range?
I believe so. I can get out there and I will continue to get in front of as many investors to tell our story. But ultimately, the value is going to be realized through the drill bit, and we've got a really exciting team at site. They're fired up. They're so energized. We've never had as many targets with this level of confidence as we do right now, and so I think that's the best way to go forward. Conversing with other companies out there, that's kind of what they're looking for. That's what they want to see. Talking to investors as well, when you get to that critical mass of ounces, typically you have that reflected in a market cap, and then once you're at a certain market cap, new investors are able to come in. So we want to get back to that 75 million market cap, back to 100 million market cap, and as you get to those thresholds, new investors are able to come in and invest in your story, and then you can kind of see how the momentum can build from there. So we got to get back. We got to turn the chart around. I think that's going to be through the drill bit, and then once that happens, the momentum should be able to continue as new investors are able to come into the story. These new institutional investors that have different thresholds.
Perfect. And this might be a bit repetitive, but my last question would really be for you: what are some of the things that you're the most excited for, as a short summary, over the next couple of months for Nevada King Gold?
Yeah, so it's been a really busy phase recently. Like I said, we put out that resource update. We put out our phase 2 met work. We had the management changes with me coming into the CEO role. We've got a new CFO who's very strong. We've got a new board. Colin Cattell stayed on, and his chairman, Bill Hayden, remains on the board as well. We added Mike Doolin, who's very technically strong, and myself joining the board. So we've had a lot of positive news flow recently, and moving forward right now, like we are kind of at the precipice right now I should call it the inflection point where we've kind of got to this stage here at Silver Park where we've got a really good handle on what we're doing now. I think these next few press releases with drill results, could really turn the story here, and I'm really excited to see what we've got at Silver Park. I mean, if we can have some success and that geophysical anomaly that I was talking about, which extends 700 meters to the north of that 750 meter strike length along the southern margin there, this thing could really take off, and I'm pretty excited with that potential. And if we have success a little further north of that 750 meter strike, then we start to infill this, and we start to strap together another deposit, and I think that could happen in fairly short order, potentially before year end. So I think it's going to be a really exciting next few months into year end.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, John. Really appreciate it.